Hello, everybody. My name is Adam Langerman.
And I'm Tyler Martinolich.
And you're listening to the HCC Radio. Today it's Some New Work plays. However, we're not doing any audio plays. No, we're having ourselves a little interview. And I think he said his name already. Couldn't he say it one more time?
Sure. I'm Tyler Martinolich, Film Commissioner for Hillsborough County.
Oh, that's fantastic. Can you tell everyone what you do as a film commissioner?
Yeah, so the Film Commission is an organization, and just about any city in the United States has one. And we are responsible for marketing, permitting, and doing all the logistical supports for any projects that are filming in the area. So that's everything from pulling permits, hotels, parking, everything that goes into a film production that they need help with, we're here for it.
All right. Have you been working on any films recently that you can tell us about or no?
Yeah, we've had a lot of things filming since the pandemic hit, and particularly this year, we've got a great film called The Throwback, which is a sort of a spin on like Freaky Friday, where a woman who's turning 40 years old wakes up the next day and she thinks she's in the body of a 16-year-old. So it's kind of a fun comedic take on a midlife crisis, but that's going to be filming here soon, and that was being directed and written by a graduate from USF, so a hometown boy here. And then this summer coming up, we have quite a few large projects, but what I'm really excited about is that this last weekend was the premiere of Secrets of the Zoo Season 3, which is streaming on Disney+, and that shoots at Lowry Park, Zoo Tampa, and they've been here for 3 years now, and they hopefully will come back for Season 4.
All right, well, make sure you watch all that stuff. I mean, that sounds pretty good, especially since one of those movies is currently being made, the Freaky Friday one.
Yeah, the Throwback starts filming the end of this month, and they'll be filming here for, 4 or 5 weeks, and then hopefully you'll be able to see that at a theater near you in the fall.
Okay. Can you tell us any projects you want to work on? Like anything you've been dreaming about working on, or like, oh, this is something like a passion project I really want to do, but I haven't had the time to make, or anything like that?
Yeah. Well, since we're sitting here in the Ybor campus, you look at Tampa Bay, and I think Ybor just has such a rich history. There's a film that some of you might remember called Live by Night, which was written about bootleg running and the mob during the 20s here in Ybor City. And unfortunately, they ended up filming that in Georgia. But there's so many amazing stories that can come out of Ybor City. There's a great one called Cigar City Rose, which talks about the first female lectora inside of cigar factories. So what they used to do is they would hire a literate person from the community to come in and read the newspaper to everyone that was rolling cigars during the day. And it's a fantastic film. We've had everyone from HBO to other large networks consider filming it here, and I hope someday they will.
Maybe what have you done to try and get them to film here? I mean, that'd be amazing to have a story like that filmed here.
Yeah, and this isn't a feature. It would be a TV series,
okay.
Which is a great long-term economic benefit to the community because, it's multiple episodes, potentially multiple seasons, and that's something that we hope we can have film here, and we actively try to get them. So part of my job is talking with filmmakers and studios and production companies to try to convince them that Tampa Bay is the right place for them to film.
Well, I think it is. I mean, have you seen some of the locations here? Like the building. There's one of the buildings you can rent that's down here. We were supposed to go for my school dance. It looks beautiful inside. I'm sure that could have been a great place to film as well.
Yeah, I mean, Ybor City is such a rich history, and not just Ybor, but like Tampa Bay in general. Beautiful waterfronts. We've got history. We've got ethnic areas like Ybor City, but we also have rural agriculture like we in Plant City. Orthodontasa, and then not too far away we have some of the most beautiful beaches in the country in Clearwater. So Tampa Bay really is a great place to film.
Yeah, there should be more films here and TV shows. Can you tell us anything that you've worked on already that's come out that you'd like us to look into, or that you're particularly proud of? Yeah, so
there was a great film that was nominated for a couple of awards this last year called Zola. That shot here in Tampa Bay and actually shot right here in Ybor City. So maybe not the best for someone who's under the age of 18, but it is definitely not a family film. But it is a really exciting film by an up-and-coming director. But we've also had films like Tim Burton's Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children,
saw that one.
Which shot here in Tampa Bay. Shot here right in Tampa, actually, over in Sun City Center area, so over by Ruskin and Gibsonton area. That shot here, we had The Infiltrator with Bryan Cranston and John Leguizamo shoot right downtown. Tampa has a rich history of filming, and it's something we hope it continues.
Okay. I was going to say something. Hold on. I lost my train of thought. I was listening to you. You know, naming off all these great films. I remember Miss Peregrine's I saw.
Yeah.
I saw in theaters. I loved Miss Peregrine's. I was so shocked to find out. I found out it was filmed in Florida after meeting you for the first time.
Yeah, it's one of those things, you know, a lot of directors, can see beyond a place and make anywhere look like what they need to look like. So in the case of Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, you know, they wanted a, sort of that 1980s Southern city look, and we were able to find the perfect location for them right here in Tampa Bay.
Yeah, the whole point of filming is it's an illusion. So yeah, anywhere can be anywhere if you film it right, if you decorate it right, if you choose the right time of day, if you choose the light location, everything.
Yeah, and there's definitely a place to shoot about anything you can imagine here in Tampa.
Yeah, all right. Is there anything else you'd like to say as well to add on to all this?
No, I mean, you know, my job is very specific to the film industry, but I don't think people fully appreciate just what a film or a commercial or a TV show can do for the area. So even if you aren't a filmmaker or you're not actually working with the film community or within the film community, it doesn't mean you shouldn't want films to be in your area or they don't matter to you. They do. Films spend a lot of money over the course of many days, and that all trickles down into the local economy. They interact with just about every business you can imagine, from dry cleaners, cleaning costumes, to local hotels and restaurants, car rental companies, even, you know, someone who rents like event mats for floors. I mean, there's not an industry you can name or think of that doesn't some way, shape, or form be impacted by a filming in the community. So it really is part of the local economy. It's something that's healthy and that people should want to support.
I mean, of course it is. I mean, you got the actors, they need to eat somewhere, they need to sleep somewhere. Some of them are coming out from different locations. Like, they need those hotels. They're going to walk around as well on their time off, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. That's not just restaurants, too. It's also attractions. So, you know, if you're an actor and you're staying here in Tampa Bay because your movie's filming here and you got a weekend off, maybe you go to the zoo, maybe you go to Busch Gardens, maybe you go to Sparksman Wharf for Armature Works or Ybor City. So it really does affect the local economy. So I'm always preaching that people should be more supportive of film and desiring it to be in their community.
I mean, I love film. I grew up on films. I dream of making my own films. I mean, that's the whole point of my the YouTube channel that I post to. That's all about trying to build that up and make those kinds of things I want so that I own them. That's a thing I'm scared of, is like making a film and then someone else owns my characters. So I'd rather build up my world, my universe, and then use that to get me into the film industry and make new things for that. Do you think that's like a good idea?
Well, yeah, everyone wants to be covetous of their own IP or intellectual property. You look at just about any TV show, whether it's The Walking Dead or Game of Thrones, of course the creator of that universe wants to hold on to their characters and have a voice in how they're used and how they're portrayed. That's what being a showrunner is all about.
Is there anything that people can do to get their foot in the door for that? Do you like to recommend them?
Yeah, I mean, like I was saying with the local economy, the film community is so all-encompassing of just about every industry. So no matter what your interest in filmmaking is, maybe that's cameras, maybe it's audio, maybe you just want to be an electrician, but you want to work on film sets. Maybe you're a carpenter. Heck, there's even jobs on film sets to be what we call a greensman or a gardener, caterer. Doesn't matter what your interest is, there is a job for you on a film set. A lot of people walk out during the credits, but next time you're watching a movie or a TV show, sit there and look through the credits and see the hundreds of, not thousands of people that it takes to make a film or a TV show come to life. So there's lots of ways into the film industry. So really the best advice I can give is first identify what you want to do in the film industry. Be very clear about what your end game is, what department do you want to work in, and then find a path to doing that job. A lot of people start out as what we call PAs or production assistants, but you don't have to be a PA in a department necessarily that you don't want to work in, right? If your interest is in audio, then find those projects that are going to allow you to work with the audio department, and then learn through osmosis, learn through doing and seeing. There's lots of paths to a successful career in film.
Okay. How'd you start out before you became the? You're the top right now.
So
how'd you get up there?
I was a production assistant, just like I was talking about, and I was working in the office as an office PA. I was always less on the creative side, more on the producing business side. And it was funny. There's a lot of paperwork involved on film sets, believe it or not, a lot of paperwork. And one day I was handed a stack of papers. I had no idea how to fill out or what to do with them. And I was basically told if I can figure out how to fill these out by the end of the day, I would continue to have a job. And I was able to do that. I called some friends, traded some favors, and was able to learn in real time what those pieces of paper were for, how to fill them out, and how to file them correctly. And sure enough, that led to other jobs. But I started out doing primarily commercials, and that translated to feature films. I've done quite a few feature films. And then now, almost 20 years later, I'm the film commissioner for Hillsborough County.
That's a pretty interesting story. The fact that they just gave you paper and said, okay, do this, and you get a job.
Yeah, with no instructions. It was basically like, here, kid, figure it out.
That's a pretty interesting way to teach you. Were they actually going to, fire you?
I mean, I think they would have had I not figured it out. Sometimes you just got to wing it and fake it till you make it.
You hear that, folks? Just fake it till you make it. That's a great advice throughout all of life. Make sure to hold on to that advice when you're taking a test, you're doing anything. You don't need to study, just fake it.
Yeah. I mean, yes, that's true to a certain extent, but it's also just being confident, right? Being confident in yourself.
I'm just being a little funny.
Oh, I know, of course. But it is about confidence. It's like, no, I believe in myself and I can figure out how to do this, and then figuring out how to do it.
Yeah, because you still have to know how to do it. You still have to learn. Do research.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you don't know something, learn it. Try your best and just act like you know it as well while you're learning it, right? So
Yes,
that way
yes.
sticks.
It's all about the, if you don't have personal confidence, then it's about the illusion of confidence. And then you just got to make sure you get the job done.
Yeah, like film, it's an illusion. You just got to believe it, and it'll happen.
What's the old saying? If you build it, they will come. So yes, that to a certain extent, that's how Hollywood and the film industry operates.
Okay, I'm going to put on, it's 12 minutes. That's usually when I put on a first music break. I'm going to do that very quickly, and then we'll be right back. See you all after a quick music break. Hello, everybody. My name is Adam Langerman.
And you're back with Tyler Martinolich, Film Commissioner for Hillsborough County.
And we'll be continuing our interview with Mr. I can't say your last name.
That's right, Martinolich. Yeah.
Martinolich. I'm sorry. I always mess up when I try to say it.
Believe me, everyone does, so it's fine.
Martinolich. I'll be able to listen back to this after the show. I'll memorize it by the next time we talk. So, can you tell me about a little bit specifics about films you've worked on? Like if there's any, one film where you could tell us specifically about things in it you worked on?
Sure. So let's see here. One of my earliest films that I worked on in the Tampa Bay area was a film called Sunlight Jr., and it was directed by a woman named Lori Collier, who was out of New York City, and she had written a film not necessarily specific to Tampa Bay, but certainly somewhere in the South, somewhere in Florida, and it just happened that the Clearwater area was perfect for the film. But I was brought on as the production manager for that particular film. And production manager is an interesting job. It's one that I don't think people outside of the industry fully understand what they do. So when you're watching credits for the next time, the first credit you see at the end of a film after the main stars or the main cast or performers is always the production manager. And what does the production manager actually do? So the production manager is essentially the assistant director for the office. So he's part of the producing structure, or I should say he or she is part of the producing structure, and they are primarily working outside of the creative lanes on a film set, and they're focusing on everything from hiring crew to making sure that the budget is performing correctly and that the money is being spent correctly. They're also in charge of logistics and paperwork. For instance, on that particular film, we were shooting on Clearwater Beach. We had a lot of driving shots. We had a lot of animals that we needed to wrangle. I was the one working behind the scenes day to day to close those roads, to hire the police officers, to make sure that we had animal wranglers on set with the appropriate animals. I was usually the first one on set and the last one to leave at the end of the day, just making sure everyone was tidied up and we were ready for the next day. So that's basically what a production manager does. He is the assistant director, but on the office side.
Okay, that's a lot of information we have to learn. Like, have you been to film school to like learn all this and like
set
it all up?
So I was a graduate of the University of Tampa many years ago in their film program. In fact, I was one of their very first graduates in their film program. And then I went to the Savannah College of Art and Design, where I got my Master's of Fine Arts in TV and film producing. So I've spent, all told, maybe 6 years within like the collegiate structure, either college or graduate school, learning what I know.
Okay. Can you tell us about any of the classes you had, like some specifics on those?
Sure. I think most film schools are structured very similarly. So it's everything from cinematography to screenwriting to producing and directing, editing. And the interesting thing is that when you transition from your normal, collegiate structure, whatever it is, whether it's, 2-year college or a 4-year college, and perhaps you go on to grad school and you're getting an MFA or an MA, then you start focusing on specifics, right? So at that point, they sort of expect you to know what you want to do on a film set. So in my case, when I went to SCAD, the Savannah College of Art and Design, I knew I wanted to go into TV producing. So I focused primarily on producing classes, and it was really great. One of my mentors, one of my professors was Andy Meyer. Andy Meyer was the producer on, everything from like The Breakfast Club to Fried Green Tomatoes, Long Hot Summer. Basically every John Hughes movie you've ever seen, he was the producer on. So it was really great to be able to sit into a classroom and go out for coffee or drinks afterwards with him and talk to someone that wasn't just a great professor, but someone who really knew his craft.
Sounds like you got a really good education with that.
Yeah.
Taught firsthand by someone who actually worked on those films.
Yeah.
I seen Breakfast Club too. So.
Yeah. I'm sure a lot of films, whether you knew Andy Meyer was the producer of it or not, you've probably seen a bunch of his films. But, I was also taught by Alan Ladd, who was the former head of Fox and who produced Star Wars. So it was a really great set of circumstances that led me to grad school. And then it was a really good, just foundational time where I learned my craft, learned from people who had actually done it, and they helped mentor me both during graduate school but also afterwards.
Can you tell me quickly what got you to want to do film? What in your life made you realize this is what I want to do? I want to go make films. I want to be a part of the film industry. I want to be there. I want to be with those guys.
Yeah. So growing up, I think it's still sort of true today. Saturday mornings, it's a bunch of cartoons on TV. You'd wake up and you watch your Saturday morning cartoons. But when the cartoons, at least when I was young, when they ended around 11:30 noon, then the channels all turned over to Westerns. So I grew up watching a lot of Westerns, whether it was John Wayne or, I'm drawing a blank. John Ford, all the big either Western directors or actors. I love those films, and I from a very young age I always wanted to make a Western, which I've never actually been able to make a Western. Hopefully someday. But that's
the future.
Yeah, but that's what led me to being interested in film in general. Like, oh man, it would be great. I want to tell a story like that. I want to be able to make a movie like that. And that just stayed with me my entire life. So I actually went into journalism first. And then I moved out of journalism into screenwriting, and then ultimately that led to editing. And then somehow along the path, I ended up into the producing structure for crew, both on television, commercial, and feature side. I'm still in the structure, but I definitely have a Western story I'd like to tell someday. So hopefully I can.
Well, you're the film commissioner. You can always just look for one. You could try to find people. I'm always open.
That is also true. At some point I might do that. It's going to be my turn to make a movie and find a project.
Since we're on the topic of that, can you tell us about any ideas you have for a Western? Or do you want to keep those close to the chest?
No. There's actually a Western backlot here in the Tampa Bay region, not in Tampa itself, but down in Bradenton, there is a great little spot called Dry Creek. And they made a TV show there for a little bit, but it is an amazing Western backlot, and people don't know it's there. So if you do have an idea for a Western, there's actually a Western town built for filming within driving distance of Tampa Bay. And it's a really cool little town. It's got a main street, a saloon, a hotel, everything you'd expect to see in a Western town is there. A corral and an old sawmill and a train station. Like, it's all there. So I've thought about that space for a long time and what might be fun to film there. And the guy who runs it, his name's Les, who actually was a radio talk show host for a long time.
Oh, connection.
But he also has a ton of horses and all the gear and equipment you could possibly want. So I won't tell you what the story I have in mind is about, but there's a place I want to film it at, and it'll be Dry Creek. So if you're listening to this and you do have an idea for a Western or just want to shoot a cool little short film or something, the place is called Dry Creek, and it's about an hour drive south of Tampa.
You hear that, everyone? Dry Creek. I said that weird. Dry Creek. You have any Westerns and you want to show it to my guest here? I can't say his last name. I knew in a second. Hear that, everyone? Dry Creek. If you want to make a Western, show it to Mr.
Martinolich.
Martinolich. Why don't you go down, film it, and come to him and see if he'll pick you up. He'll write the film. He'll make, he's going to do all that. He swears it right now. He's swearing it. He's making a huge promise. He's got the contract ready. He's got 5 contracts ready.
I'm ready to go. If you got an idea, come to me and we'll figure out how to make it work. But there's a lot of resources here in Tampa Bay, not just like Western backlots that people can take advantage of. And that's part of my job, is to talk about that with interested filmmakers. So if you have any idea for a film, whether it's a short film or a feature, please call Film Tampa Bay up. We're easily found online, and we're here to try to connect you with the resources you need.
Okay. Is there anything else you can think of that can connect to all this? Like, we're talking about all the films you want to make. We're talking about the schools you've been to. Is there anything you can talk to us about that connects to all that?
I mean, just at a human level, I think people underestimate how good of a storyteller everyone actually is. Like, there's a famous saying that, nothing is more human than telling a story. It's just how we're built. So even before we had a vocabulary to talk to one another, we were explaining ourselves and sharing stories visually, right? Look at the earliest caveman. They had drawings on their cave walls to try to share with other people, the hunts they went on, their spiritual existence, all these things they were sharing visually. So people know it's in our genetic code how to tell a really good story. So never discount your ability to tell a story or share a story. And I really believe that everyone has at least one good film in them, something that is unique to them, a unique experience, a unique direction or take on something that only they can tell. So whether you think you could be a good filmmaker or you have no interest in filmmaking at all, never discount your ability to tell a good story and share stories with others.
I personally think it's worth for everyone to try and make a film at least once, even if it's just like making a script or like filming an actual thing. Even if you don't finish it, you could learn something about what you like to make, or if filming's the kind of thing you want to do, or maybe that you'll learn that you like telling stories but you don't like being in the camera, all that. So I think everyone should try to make a film.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think, especially now, because it's so accessible, you don't need millions of dollars. You don't need a lot of fancy equipment. Look at everyone that's doing things just on their phone, whether it's YouTube or TikTok or Twitch or Instagram. There's so many platforms for you to share your story that's unique to you in a very economical way. So I absolutely agree with you, Adam. I think everyone should find time to try to make a film or a short film or something visual that is telling a story that only they can tell.
I actually turned one of the film, I tried making a film, and I turned it into one of my audio stories, which was Peck and Fist Ocean Blues, the first or second one. I think it was the second one I told on this show. So that definitely taught me, okay, I'm not ready to make a film yet. I need to wait a little bit, write some stories, but I'm definitely going to go back to try and make a film.
But I bet you learned something through that process.
I did. I learned that I need to think things through, definitely. The plot was pretty good. What I needed to think through was the location, locations and the characters. I reworked the characters and I reworked the script for the audio show because I completely like changed some things, and I realized I need to sit down if I'm going to make a film, and I need to think about everything.
Yeah.
So I definitely need to wait a little bit.
But I mean, that's part of the process too. So that's why people should go out there and try to create content, because every time they make something, they should be learning from that experience. Sometimes they learn what not to do, but other times they learn what they should be doing, and they'll go back and adjust their future projects to match those expectations. So people should be going out there and making things.
Okay. I'm going to put us on one more quick music break. I'll see you all after that. Just 1 second. Hello, everybody. My name is Adam Langerman.
And I'm Tyler Martinolich, Film Commissioner for Hillsborough County.
And we're continuing our interview for today. So we were talking before we went to the music break about, how people should try at least once to make a film on their own, or friends or all that. Can you tell me what about short films? Can you tell me about making a short film? Yeah,
so I think most filmmakers probably start at some point making a short film. And a lot of them do it very poorly. Not because they don't know what they're doing necessarily, but they've never created a short before for distribution or for people to see. And it's a very different thing. If you're just making a film for you and your friends to view, that's fine. There's no right or wrong way to do that as long as you're happy with it or it meets your expectations. But if you're trying to make a short film that people will actually see, it's really important to follow some rules. So most people will try to get their shorts in a film festival, and most film festivals will not take shorts if they're longer than 15 minutes. So as much as you want to tell that story that's 45 minutes, resist that urge and start editing your script and your idea until you can get it down to what we consider a tight 15. But every minute shorter than 15 minutes, you're actually increasing your chances of getting into a film festival. So if you're really serious about trying to make a film to get into a festival, you probably should be targeting about 10 minutes total from credits rolling at the beginning to the credits rolling at the end. That you don't want to be more than 10 minutes long. So much the better if you can get it under 10 minutes, because that actually helps programmers at festivals program content. So that's one thing. So look at your script and your idea and see what is the shortest amount of time I can tell this story in. And then the next thing people tend to do is they write for the big screen, right? Because they've watched so many movies over the course of their lives that they're trying to envision, how can I tell a story as big and as grand as a Fast and the Furious film or a Star Wars film. And the reality is that takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of money, and a lot of crew. You don't necessarily have that as a first-time filmmaker. So what you should be looking at is, what are my resources? Before you even come up with an idea, think about, what do I have access to? We were talking about that cool Western backlot down in Bradenton. Maybe that's a resource I can use. Maybe I should write a Western. That'd be a really cool location. Or maybe your friend owns a business or has a really neat house, or a weird barn that he has access to. Think about all of your friends, family, and connections you have, and what resources you might have. Start there, right? Figure out, what things do I have access to, and then write a script or come up with an idea that can use those things, right? That's the best path to success. Why do most first-time filmmakers making feature films start in the horror genre? Because a haunted house film, you only need a house. It's easy to get to, right? You don't have to find a bunch of different locations. So, the best films, most successful films, are ones that take advantage of the resources they have immediate access to. And especially if you don't have a lot of resources as far as money goes. You want to rely on friends and family and businesses to help you out. So start there.
So it's all about keeping track of everything, like the length of the script, keeping track of where you can go, what you can do, what you're capable of. But it's also like, when you're cutting things for a script, like back to the short film, you're cutting things for it, you find that you add stuff that's not important to the script and the story. Like, you're adding all these little details that don't add anything. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So, there's in screenwriting, there's an idea that actually it's in science too, but the idea of causal relationships. And you've heard this term another way. Every action has an opposite and equal reaction, right? So a script, to have action in it, to drive a narrative forward, all you're doing is setting up problems and then responding to those problems, right? And when you're creating a script, what you should be looking for is, does everything on every page service either presenting a problem or answering a question, right? And if it doesn't, then it doesn't need to be in the script. That's how you start editing your script. It's how, when the actual editing process, when you have your footage shot, that's how you start throwing out scenes. Is this actually moving or propelling the story forward? And if it's not, you don't need it. And sometimes that's the coolest shot you filmed and you're really excited and happy about it. But at the end of the day, if it's not moving the story forward, or if it's not explaining a character's motivation, or if it's not really doing anything within the context of the story, then it's not needed. You just get rid of it. So, and that takes a lot of maturity, especially as a content creator, because, you don't want to be self-censored. You're sitting there thinking, I've written the best script ever. Did you really write the best script ever? Make sure you're asking people for their opinions, and then not every opinion is correct, but consider those opinions and look at your script as objectively as you can, and then start taking away things. If you can say something in 5 pages, you can probably say the same thing in 3 pages.
Okay. Something else you can do is, it's a thin line between a character moment and wasted time. Something you could do is try to make sure that character moment also overlaps with a story beat. Try to make sure that things are overlapping at the same time. That's a bit more complex, but that's also something that could be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it goes back to that idea of every action has an opposite and equal reaction, right? So you want to be putting your characters in spaces, doing action or something happening that is progressing the story forward. And every time the story progresses forward, we should learn more about the characters that are actually moving through the script, right? So you do want that parody, you do want the overlap of things happening, but also the reveal of different character qualities or traits or growth within an actor or a character.
So, make sure to read over your script, make sure to follow the advice you've given, and that scripts can always be cut down at least once. Parts are definitely, not everything you've written is important.
Absolutely true. And sometimes the best medicine is to have someone that, does not, it's not your mom, it's not your best friend, because they are not necessarily always honest with you, right? Because they think the best of you.
Everything you make is good.
Right. So go to a professor or a teacher, someone you trust, or just a stranger, and say, hey, give us a look, man. What's your honest opinion? What do you think of this? And hopefully they give you their honest feedback. And again, not all feedback is good, not all feedback is valid, but all feedback should be considered. So you should at least think about what they're saying, take some time to consider it, and then maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong, but at least hear them out.
Negative feedback can also have a bigger impact because it points out a flaw that you may not have noticed you had, like a scripting error, or a way you write the script is confusing, and you may not have seen it. And instead of getting upset about it, you should look into it at least. At least try to look into it and see the validity in that claim.
That's great advice. No one likes to be told that they're wrong or that something doesn't work. But if someone's pointing that out, someone else might point that out too, right? So think about that. And it's well, if 5 people have told me the same thing, they're probably right? And you're just not seeing it from their perspective. So it's all about being as objective as you can.
You got to balance it out. Balance out what's going to please people, what's going to work, what's a majority wants. At the same time, what you want, what stories you want to tell and characters. There needs to be a balance. Yeah. To keep things good. It
was funny, just to give an example. So when Rocky first came out, Sylvester Stallone went to every single screening that he could drive to within distance of his house. And he sat there, he'd load up the projector, he'd make sure that the screen was perfect, and then he'd talk to the audience afterwards, did you enjoy the movie? Did this work? Did that work? He was really hungry for feedback and to make sure that first film was perfect. But very few filmmakers have that opportunity, right? You make a film, you put it out there. So unless you are just sitting there on Rotten Tomatoes reading every review, you don't hear most of the reactions. So you don't get to defend your movie. Once it's out there, it's out there. So people are going to have their own opinions. So films are not created in a vacuum. So in the creative process on the front end, you should absolutely be asking people their opinion and listening to them.
Speaking of Rotten Tomatoes, what do you think is more important to look at? The audience reaction or the critics? And before you answer, personally, I think audience more than a critic, but still a critic has value that you should read.
That's a tough one. So I think for most films, you're probably right that the audience reaction is probably a lot more important than the critic's reaction. But then there's also, how do I put this nicely? Sort of like the fanboy reaction to things.
Someone who will like anything or
Right.
dislike anything.
Yes, I just love DC Comics, so I'm always going to be positive about DC Comics. So there is some inherent bias within audience scores, but I think for the most part, the audience score is probably more reflective of what the average person is going to think of the movie than some critic who's sitting there
who's seen like these kinds of plots a lot.
Yeah,
even if it's good, like
who
he's
watches everything and is cynical, and his job is there to pick it apart. Whereas the average audience person is just there to have a nice time, right? They just want to enjoy a movie.
Have you ever had a movie that came out and you were just so excited for it, and then the scores came in, you just kind of fell, and you were just really hurt, and how to deal with that if that ever happens?
Yeah, I'll give you the opposite reaction.
Oh, the opposite. Okay.
So
keep things positive.
The critics loved Dune. I like the book Dune. Like, I'm a big Frank Herbert fan. I really like the original film, even though it was kind of bonkers and strange. And I went to see Dune, and I was just so bored. I mean, it was epic in scale, great acting throughout, but it was way too long, talking about like not self-editing and cutting. And there's just scenes that dragged on in service to nothing. It was just there for spectacle and the size and scale and scope to show like, oh, I made this on screen. And I just walked out of that movie not displeased, but not excited. But then what do I know? Because it just won, I think, 7 Oscars or 6 Oscars.
Apparently it's I didn't watch it.
So it's...
I try to read books before I watch movies now. Yeah. So I haven't read the book, so I haven't watched the movie. That's
actually a pretty good advice, is always read the book, because it's usually better. But in this case, so yeah, taking to your point for like Rotten Tomatoes. So if you look at Rotten Tomatoes, people love Dune. I just wasn't very hot on it.
Okay. So you're saying even though like a film could be generally loved and praised and all that, there could still be value in people that didn't like it, that you should still look at those opinions as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, there's 400 million people in the United States. That's a lot of different flavors of ice cream, right? Everyone's going to have their own opinions and their own background, their own biases. So I never put too much trust in Metacritic or Rotten Tomatoes. So even like the audience score, I'll still scroll through and see the best reaction and the worst reaction, because usually somewhere in between is the truth.
Okay. Anything more you want to say on this topic of like critics and trying to keep things together and all that?
No, it's an exciting time, because now there's so many different platforms that people can share their experiences and opinions. It used to be you had to pull up the newspaper to read what your local critic thought of the movie. And if you didn't like your local critic's opinion, it was kind of a deflating thing. But now, whether it's Rotten Tomatoes or Metacritic, or just going on, YouTube or Instagram or Twitch, there's going to be someone that you probably agree with more often than not who's giving an opinion. And those are the people I'm excited to hear from, right? Like, oh, well, this guy aligns with my values. We're always like simpatico. We're always right on as far as our likes in films. Like, what did he think as he saw this movie? So it's a great time to be into content creation and just enjoying media at large, because there's someone that shares your love for whatever that thing is.
Yeah, it's like you were saying earlier, and just now, you're saying it now, you were saying earlier, we're at a time where anyone can make a film. Anyone can buy a camera, and it doesn't matter the quality of the camera. It matters the quality of the story, the script, and the characters.
Yeah, absolutely. You are not limited by technology. So Sean Baker, who won an Academy Award for Florida Project, his latest film, Red Rocket, is fantastic. Go see it. But the first film he did was a movie called Tangerine, and he shot the entire thing on an iPhone, right? You don't need millions of dollars to make a movie. You just have to be creative and hardworking enough to make it work.
I bet someone in the future is going to buy one of those old toy cameras that like they used to sell. Yeah, like the old toy video can make a whole film with that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm sure someone has already done that. So we are never limited by the technology we have access to. We're limited by our creativity, right? So no matter what your socioeconomic status is, there is a friend or someone you can borrow a camera from, no matter what the technology is, that will allow you to tell the story you want to tell. You just have to be creative in how you do it.
Right. And also make sure to prepare for it beforehand.
If there's any advice to take away, make sure you've thought things through.
Okay, we're going to be coming to a close in about 4 minutes when I'm going to play the last song. But I'd like to ask one more question. Of everything we've talked about today, what do you want people retaining? Like, if they could only retain one thing you've asked, one thing you've said, one thing you've explained, what would it be?
So it goes back to what I was saying. Everyone had a story to tell, right? I think we're living in a time period, I just said this, where technology is so easily grasped, right? There's never been another time in history where you could share your thoughts, your opinions, your creativity with as many people as you can right now. So I would challenge anyone listening, no matter if you are already a content creator, you're thinking about it, or it's just something that you've toyed around with in your head. Pick up your phone, pick up a camera, go on Instagram, tell your story, share your community, because that's how change happens, and that's how people learn about each other, right? There's parts of Tampa Bay that I've never seen. There's people and different cultures that I've never experienced. And the only way I'm going to experience those cultures or learn more about those areas or whatever it might be is by someone telling me their story. So it's really important, not just for creating content, but for sharing who you are and who your culture is, your economic or social scale, whatever it might be. Like, I don't know these things unless you tell me about them. So everyone has an opportunity to not only be a storyteller, but also a teacher. And it's really important that people take advantage of that when they can.
Okay, then. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm Adam Langerman.
And I'm Tyler Martinolich, Film Commissioner for Hillsborough County.
And this has been Some New Work Plays, audio dramas and plays on Some New Work. Only this time an interview, as something mixes things up a bit. I'll see you all next week for the beginning of a new play. And make sure to listen to the other HCC radio shows as well. They put a lot of time and effort into their shows. And yeah, I'm going to put on one more song, and then I'll switch it back to live radio. See you all next week. Goodbye.